Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. Inside the Set is a series that focuses on the design and decor of stories that excite us and ignite our imaginations, where we get to discuss the collaborations between production designers and set decorators, and hear firsthand accounts of how those works of art came to be, from their inception to ideas on the page through completion, where we sit in the dark and experience them collectively.
Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. I'm Halina Siwolop SDSA, and I'm pleased to welcome back set decorator Lee Sandales and production designer Nathan Crowley. Today we're going to discuss Lee and Nathan's imaginative collaboration on Universal Pictures' gravity-defying film adaptation of the smash Broadway musical Wicked. It's so nice to see you both again, and thank you for joining me today. Are you ready to share all your Wicked design secrets?
Why not? You be here?
Here we go. I have to tell you, I so enjoyed watching this film, and I'm a huge fan of the Broadway musical, but it was really your set decoration and production design that just wowed me to the very end. There's so many questions I have for you, but I'd love to start with the beginning of the project. Here you've been hired to recreate the world of Oz, and really, where do you start? How did you start this process?
Nathan, okay, I'll start off. So John, we were finishing Wonka, right? And John Chu and Mark Platt called me, and they were interested in hiring us for the picture. John was very specific. He wanted sort of this whimsical, joyous, colorful production. Mark was all things Wicked and really wanted to sort of hone in on what he'd spent 20 years of his life sort of creating, and he'd always seen it as a film to begin with, and I think he was delighted to finally try and bring it to screen. I obviously am familiar. I grew up with The Wizard of Oz as a child. You know everything about that film. Every Christmas you watch it. And Wicked I was less familiar with, but I went to see the show several times. And it suddenly dawned on me watching the show that I had to do the alternative view of The Wizard of Oz. And then that became an exciting challenge to okay, we not only have to tell the story of Wicked, the Wicked Witch of the West, and this great friendship where these two women change each other for good. But we also have to set it in the background of Oz, which was just the best challenge, I think, or certainly one of the best challenges I've ever been given. And then they hired us. So.
And Lee, when he said, "Hey, I've got Wicked," what was your response to that?
Well, Nathan came in, actually. We were just ending Wonka, and Nathan came in. You had just read the script, and you said to me, yeah, I kind of got halfway through. We got to about 120 pages, and then I turned over, and then it read page 1 again. And then there's another 120 pages, and you went, oh my God, it's actually 2 scripts. And I think for me, I was really gobsmacked at the scale of it and how much we had to cover. And so we kind of basically went, right, let's just do it. And we have to do it it was a magical start. Nathan went away for about 2 months, and he started a very early kind of concepting stage. And when he was ready and we kicked off, he showed me the very start of the world, and it was mesmerizing.
So where did you guys start with that design? Which world came about first?
Well, I think we just come off Wonka, so we've been testing, doing sort of physical, practical filmmaking, physical sets on Wonka, and really trying to build high and with textural detail, photographic detail, so we could balance CGI with practical build. So it was it was a really good testing ground to see if we could take on fantasy in a practical way. Mm-hmm. So that I knew that from the beginning, and I knew that we had to somehow get into an even further fantastical world, a whimsical world, practically. So really the design started, you kind of have to just tackle something and see where you go with it. So I think the first thing we tackled was Munchkin Land, thinking that might be the simplest.
Silly you.
Which was, of course, it just seemed like, okay, we've got the Munchkin Land. What can we do? You kind of tackle it all at once. So, but you have to find an original look because the audience will expect it. And there's so many problems with Munchkin Land or pitfalls because, you can go into sort of, the Middle Earth and the Hobbits and French alpine villages. There's so many pitfalls, but really I think the way in was to decide what they do, and with John's joy of color and whimsicalness, we thought, well, if they're farmers, what do they farm? They're colorful people. Then it suddenly occurred to us, it's like, oh yeah, all the colors of the rainbow, a theme. We need themes. And so from that came the tulips. Like they're nearly all the colors of the rainbow. And then from that, it's like, how do we do this practically? And it was like, we have to plant real tulips. As far
9
as
million of them.
yeah, 9 million, because we have to find a landscape. We're going to make this practically. We have to design Munchkin Land, so we have to come up with new building shapes. We have to plant the tulips. There it is. You can see the 9 million tulips in Norfolk, because I needed a landscape with no trees in the distance, because as we all know, Aussian trees are circular. I mean, of course they are. So that was really the way in. But at the same time, when you're trying to build the look of the film, you can't do it alone. So you have to really look at the book's maps and like, where is Munchkin Land? What does the narrative tell us? It tells us we have, the songs, The Wizard of Eye. We have to be near the cliffs for that song. So therefore we have to be near the impassable desert. So then the map determines it's up to the north east. So you have to really find you have to find the Munchkins. You've got to find Gillikin. You've got to find Kiamiko. You've got to find, the Emerald City, which is obviously the harder one to pinpoint, and then Shiz. So
that was the most when I actually joined you, you'd already worked out what the map of the world was, and it had come from the book, and Nathan had actually created separate worlds actually within the whole world, and it was, for me, my in was Munchkin Land, but we ran Shiz at exactly the same time. And when I opened up, because Nathan had created like a lookbook, and it actually started with the map of Oz, and then we went into, I think it was actually set out in the context of the story. So the first pages were Shiz. No, was it Munchkin Land or was it Shiz? I seem to Shiz.
It's Kiamiko, because
it was Kiamiko. Yeah, it was Kiamiko. Okay.
Yeah, we start with the Kiamiko and the witch's hat, and then we have to fly through the window. So we knew we had to start really kind of in film too. But then we fly over and find Munchkin Land. So yeah, Munchkin Land was right there, and I parked up Kiamiko because we all felt it was something we had to really think about, because it was one of the ancient seats of Oz. It's Fiero's ancient family house, and we end a lot of the second film there, and the impassable desert is a key piece of that, so it has to sit on the edge. So we just parked that up because we really had to get into film one. So Munchkin Land was where we started.
Looking at your set photos and all the bright colors, I just love it. And I think the massive scale of the build really brought the viewers in. And was that all practical, or was any of it set extension? Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of CGI in there. Of course, there always is.
Yeah.
But we needed to go. Really, sort of our theory is if we can make it, we should. And we need to go as high as the landscape will allow us in the. I mean, Shiz University, we got up to 52 feet in height. And there's a reason for that. I know that sounds sort of extravagant and mad, but there's a reason for all of this, because if you get the photographic material, you film it, then Pablo, who runs visual effects, knows what the rest of it should look like because he's got real photographic material. So the blend for the top is seamless because all the materiality and all the colors are on there. And then if you can build as much for real and you can put in the real water for Shiz, you can then put CGI over and you can put in animals, and it balances out, because you don't want to do a CGI set with CGI animals and CGI background, then it's all of that. So you have to find, well, in our opinion, you have to find the balance. So for instance, the river towards Shiz is the Seven Sisters down in Sussex. So you get we built boats, and we floated Galinda down the Seven Sisters through the big arch there. And obviously the CGI is the background white cliffs on the Seven Sisters. But then we build the white arch and the rock face to get into Shiz and the reverse side. So then VFX have that information of what that arch should look like. And then you float into Shiz. I'm not sure anyone was happy that we put a water tank there, right, Lee? I think they all really disliked us, as far as I can see.
You know what? What was so brilliant was, if you wanted to get from one side of the set to the other, the fastest way to do it was actually just to sail across rather than walk. The set was that big.
I mean, there's a good reason for the water, because the narrative, you can't step on, how do you get to Shiz? How do you arrive there? The animals are free, so horse and carts are out. There's no cars. You can't take the train because you're stepping on the Wizard's technology. You can't take a balloon, an airship, because that belongs to Omaha. Yeah. So you have to so really it became quite obvious. You got to go by boat. But I think it was very difficult. Once we started building a giant water tank, and it is huge, that water tank, I think the crew were a little upset having to work in that environment. So it was a beautiful set. I mean, it was extraordinary, and the fact that you could actually bring the boat through the arch, you could then moor it, you could then walk up the staircase and then straight into the quad. And then you could either turn left to go to the dining hall, or you could turn right to go down towards the classrooms. It was a fully functioning architectural space.
I love when Glinda arrives in the pink boat and all the pink bits dressed onto the boat. That was such a lovely moment. And you really worked well with pink, Lee.
We had a lot of pink. It was
a lot of pink.
Because Nathan had looked at the girls' dorm, and it was like a parabolic shape, with a vaulted ceiling and two smaller rooms actually off it. And I was trying to find furniture to sit against curved walls, and it's it's quite hard to do that. And but we were also trying to find a period that would sit well within the context of the architecture, and I really turned to Anglo-Indian, which is a small period from about 1860 to about 1880, and we really actually channeled that, and then we built out from that, and then we added lots and lots of pink.
So on that note, did you have to, I mean, I know that Nathan had a small army to build his world, but as far as set decoration, did you have to manufacture most of your set dressing?
We manufactured a lot, but we also sourced from around the world. Kate Venner and I, who is the buyer who I work with, we traveled to India and across Europe, and we created a portfolio for every single set. And what we couldn't find, we actually built. So we had an enormous prop making team that were housed under Jamie Wilkinson, our prop master. And we went about actually making stuff for nearly every single set. The girls' dorm, the contraptions which are used within the scene. I mean, when you read that in the script, it was just luggage. And, Popular was a song that was set in the context of, the bedroom. But as John John's imagination is so incredible, and he kind of gathers you around him and he pulls you in, and you work as the most amazing team. And we developed a whole language, and we created the sequence from what he was telling us what he needs, to happen within the song and the movement, and the contraptions became very much part of that, and everything was worked out, for every beat of the song. So if you look really closely, there's a meaning in almost everything.
What Lee isn't telling you is like what Lee did with our actors and underneath the stage with special effects to mechanize these props and to have these moments where she'd kick a piece of luggage or something would fly up or a dress would fly out. This was months of planning, months of rearranging, because you take that set and you think of all the different variants on it, and you probably had about, I don't know, 8 redresses of that one room. So
I think it was 20. I think it was 20. 20. Yes, 20 redresses.
And it was incredible mechanics underneath the set, and it all looks so fluid and simple, but it was far from that for Lee and his department.
Yeah, the choreography between all those pieces
The choreography is amazing.
was amazing. So that leads me into one of what I think of as a really complex set, which is the library, and you're rotating or you're rolling bookshelves. Do you guys want to talk about that a little bit? Because that was amazing.
I mean, for me, it was the first thing about that set I designed, because as Fiero's introduction, and he's the coolest guy, in the school. He's the coolest guy in Oz, and we have to introduce him. And it was I've always loved moving sets, Royal Wedding, Fred Astaire, rotating sets. I love that Jamiroquai video where the floor moves and the furniture moves with him. And so it was like moving sets, and there's a lot of moving sets in this. And the fact he triggers the turning wheels and starts this sort of dancing through life, and there's this sort of motion beyond the dancers and the choreography, the set moves. So the whole set we came up with this idea first. The bookshelves were circular, Oz, and then we then went into the dance sequence, and then we built the whole library around these shelves. So, and then special effects, who were just wonderful, had to rotate them all individually. So each of the 3 drums is independent, and then each of the 3 ladders are independent too. So they can trigger any movement on that wheel. And you know what? It was just great fun. When we got that moving, it was just definitely one of the best sets I think we built.
It was.
Look at that.
And we ended up making all the books for the shelves because the dancers needed a surface to obviously actually kick off. So it was like a high density foam for them to actually land and actually move on.
But also the themes of the film are defying gravity. So you can turn the camera upside down. It's a circle. You don't know which way up you are, and that, you'll find defying gravity, like Kiamiko feels like a floating castle. Not that we see it much. It's just at the beginning briefly. But if you look at it, there's themes that sort of lead you towards the Emerald City. And this was one of them. And this took once again, we built this early on, because the amount of rehearsal the dancers needed was immense. So we'd have this set. It must have sat there for about 3 months. And they'd come back to Lee and say, "Oh, we need all the books to be, they need to be rubber so people can land on them. They need soft edges." As the dance developed, there was this sort of demand on the set. But I don't know. I think it was worth it.
It was.
And then you obviously have to design to their choreography also. Like I'm watching them dancing on the library tables and all that. So you must have worked really closely with that whole department, correct?
We did, and they had we ended up marking out the sets and the spaces actually for them, and we built like temporary pieces for them to actually work with, like tables and chairs, and then we obviously built the final version. Most furniture which they actually danced in all had to be reinforced, so it could actually take like the movement of maybe up to 8 dancers. So but we worked very closely with them to actually achieve that.
Any idea how many books you had to manufacture?
I don't know, actually, I can't remember.
Thousands.
Thousands.
Well done. I think it's one of the most beautiful sets in the movie. It's really, really amazing. It took my breath away. So that's one of my favorites. Lee, what's one of your favorites?
Well, you only really glimpse it in film 1, but it's the governor's mansion, which is the birth of Elphaba. It's Nathan created a challenge which was leaning into the Art Nouveau, and it was extremely hard to try and find the pieces, and the pieces that we couldn't find, we ended up building. I think it's a set that I'm so proud of, because it's kind of breathtaking actually when you see it. You glimpse a tiny bit of it, but it really comes into its full glory in the second film.
Yeah.
Nathan, what about for you? What was one of your favorites?
I saw the film a long time ago, like a rough cut, over a year. No, actually, it was nearly a year ago in December. It would be a year. And it was the bit that really knocked my socks off were when you get off one short day, when you get off the train and you start in day and you go into night, into Wizardmania and the entrance into the Emerald City. I think some of that, the dance, the sort of glamour, the old Hollywood, the fountain turning, the water, the Wizardmania, and then you finally go into this simple hall, and it's just a sort of intimidation chamber, and you go from all this, how incredible the Emerald City is like into the actual palace. I mean, this bit I just thought was when you cross that arch into night. I mean, look at these two; they look so good, and some of these dancers is so colorful. I mean look at the movement, the train, all that, everything you see in that frame is physical. So I mean, the train's up there, it's 48 tons and it's sitting 12 foot in the air, so
we created a canvas, and it is the story of these two women, first of all rivals, and then they become like these incredible spirits, and and they have learned to become friends. And the first half of the film slightly unpacks a story of them and their friendship and what they mean to one another. And then as soon as they get onto the Great Train of Oz, I feel like, Nathan, I think that you'd agree, because it backs this up, is that the whole film pitches at 45 degrees and it just rockets, and it doesn't stop rocketing until literally the very, very end frame. And it almost pushes you back into your seat and leaves you a bit breathless.
I mean, you take that number all the way through the Great Hall into the throne room with the wizard's head, the I Am Oz, and then the map room. It's just everything. It's pure John Chu and his excitement. He's like, it has this sort of childlike excitement, and he took me away. Even though I know every inch of that film, I forgot where I was, which is obviously the art of cinema, So yeah, so this was, I thought it was incredible. I mean, John would like Lee was saying, John would say, he'd come to us, we build the Emerald City, he says, I need a rotating fountain with pods of flowers open. And, we had like 4 weeks. He's like, all right, let's give it a go. So, I
never thought that was ever, I was thinking, we're never going to be able to build that in time. I can never. I mean, and even though I think all I had to do was like small coins, but but the art department, what the art department did,
you had to do the balloon. When it finally opens in the top,
that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And it's like you put the little icing on the cake, which is really John Chu as well. He goes, how about a balloon at the top? Like this, for instance, the wizard's head. We wanted, the wizard. We had this theory: the wizard is an illusionist. I mean, it's the Wizard of Oz. He's a carpetbagger. He was a salesman, but I saw him, and I think me and myself and Lee saw him as an illusionist. He was like, he was a turn of the century automaton maker. The orange tree was the mechanical watchmaking. So everything he did was automaton like. Even his train is run not by steam, by wind up mechanics, and so everything has a sort of a motion to it where it starts fast and slows down. And so the Ozian head, or the wizard's head, had to sort of stick with that. So special effects had this wonderful puppeteer who could animate all the pieces of the face. And so this was a big journey in terms of figuring out if we could do it, how big we could make it, what the expressions were. I mean, the idea is, rather than come through a theater curtain that does this, there was all the string curtains, much like the string art you see in modern museums, but it was like 20 foot deep, and you sort of push through it. You feel the wind of the mechanics coming through, and the curtain moves, and then the head pokes in, and it goes, "I am Oz," with an eye and a face. But the challenge of actually doing that is like Lee's department, the art department, special effects, drapery, curtains. Just the green on the strings alone was a challenge. We sat there for hours with the drapery. I mean, days trying to figure out all the greens.
Well, it was like when Nathan actually showed me what the curtain could be. I was thinking, how are we going to build that? And I went back to my office thinking, oh, there must be a way through this. And I found a piece of curtain weight about that big on my desk. And I went, and like I picked up and went, actually, a curtain weight, hang on. And I went, hang on, garden plastic chain, like plastic chain. Maybe we could make it from there. And then we ran some tests, and then we had over 2,500 strands of velvet drape just amongst it all, and we built this rig to actually contain it all. And then there was a crew that had to work behind the curtain to allow the head to actually pass through, so it wouldn't get caught in the motion of the head. And it became such a technical achievement, but such a spectacle. And standing in that set when the head moved in, it really was quite frightening. It left such an impression.
It did what it needed to do with the two actors. Galinda and Elphaba literally like jumped when it comes through. So, and it's just I kind of love all that whole scene all the way. It takes you away. The film already sort of the characters embed in you for the first hour and a half. And then suddenly, when all the relationships are developed, it flies to meet the wizard.
And I think what's so amazing about that set is that it's all in camera. Everything, it's all in camera. There's no visual effects.
Even the egg, even the mat room is in camera. So that is a theater show in itself, I think.
So I love what you said about how you come out of this really whimsical dance sequence, the Wizamania, and you're out in the marketplace, which was fantastic. Lee, all your little touches there were amazing. I don't know how you came up with all those products. And then you come into the solitude and kind of the magnitude of the Great Hall. So what was your design process for that set? Like, what did you want it to be?
An intimidation corridor. You come out of the chaos, the wizard will see you now. In you go, and you have the lines of the blue monkeys, the army, and then really it's this green chamber. It's because the wizard is an illusionist, he also knows how to intimidate you, and he wants to focus you because he's really trying to get the Elphaba to read the grimoire. So he needs to impress her to such a high level that she's willing to do it. So really it was about this long corridor And I came up with these great windows that had all this depth, and there were sort of upside down keyholes, so that you don't feel the roof of the place. And then really, when I remember looking at it thinking, oh, it's too wide. We have to do this endless corridor. So that's why we built those columns. It's to narrow the perspective. Because the room's just an empty room. I mean, Lee came up with these brilliant sort of almost train station style, solid green, emerald green benches.
I think the resistance for me is quite often, and because from Wonka, when we did Willie's bedroom, there was this that I always like a negative space, and there's resistance to don't put anything in. If it doesn't need to be there, don't put it in. And I think this is like, you know, the perfect example of that as well. It was just the benches, and that's all it needed. The architecture needed to sing all on its own.
I think you're right. You know, we always fight the urge to put more stuff in, but it's so beautiful in its minimalism.
It's beautiful.
This is probably evident to you because your whole design, you know, I'm seeing all these circular shapes throughout the movie. So, and then you had talked about the circular trees in Oz. So, is that something that's from the books, from your design minds? How did you guys come up with all that?
It's just Oz.
Oz.
It's just Oz. It's like, as you remember, we were scouting forests very early on with John, and we were all getting to know each other because we all go on these scouts, and it's really, you have to get to know everyone on the crew. Well, we're new to John's crew. He has some people he's worked with many times, so it's really getting to know them. I was walking through the forest with John. It's like he was looking around and goes, it just doesn't have any whimsical magic to it. And these were sort of redwoods in England, and he wasn't wrong. And we were sitting on the bus, and he was like, because I'd used all these circles, he says, well, just make the trees circular. It's like, yeah, let's make the trees circular. And really it developed from the mother tree, and that really plays in the second film. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's the mother tree was really the elder tree of the forest. If Elphaba is all things nature. And we always saw the film as the Grimmery was the sort of time of the land and the ancient magic, and Elphaba belonged between the time of people and the time of the land and the magic, and then the wizards was the time of modernism. So so the forest had to speak to Elphaba, and you get to see it a bit in. I'm Not That Girl in the forest from film 1, but we get to see a lot more of it in film 2. So the mother tree became this sort of crazy entwined elder tree, and then the smaller trees were circular.
So, what were some of the big challenges, or did you have any moments where you're like, oh, I don't know if this is going to happen?
I think it was shiz, wasn't it? Really, that was hard.
Yeah, it nearly broke every department we have. There's so much detail.
It was amazing, though. It was amazing. In fact, actually, the day that we actually started to shoot on that, there was a sunrise just right over the set. It was about 6:15 in the morning, and the sun hit the whole front of the building, and it was just bathed in this golden light, and the shadows came right through into the quad, and it completely felt like a totally real space. It was extraordinary.
It was tricky, though. I mean, we definitely I've never built anything anywhere close to that size of shiz, because we not only did we have the water tank and the whole courtyard with the giant arch, which is, symbolizes the Americana of this American fairy tale, but we also we attached the courtyard so we have free flow between the courtyard and the water tank. So so your backgrounds, you're not cutting, you're not putting green screens out there between the two sets, you're flowing through them, so you can bring everyone up from the boats through into the courtyard in one, which and just to give you a sort of idea, the water starts at 0 and then you have 5 feet of water, then the dock is at 6 to 7 feet, then you have 12 feet of stairs before you even get to the ground floor of the courtyard, and then you're going another 35 feet up. So you end up at 52 plus feet up there, and at that height, you're dealing with all kinds of engineering issues. So construction and set deck really had the crews had a hard time because you're working at great height. It's definitely, it was worth it, but it was I'm not sure we all felt it was worth it in the last week. So
No, I think when the set was actually being built, as always, we had terrible weather, but the construction crew was so incredible, and they got through it, and the props team all got through it. And as soon as the crew arrived, the sun came out, and they had glorious weather for the 2 weeks of shooting on, or like the 3 weeks, So they were blessed.
I have to admit, I was wondering about the sunshine. I'm like, is that real? Is that on stage? Is that outdoors? How did you control that? But you just answered it.
I think it's really important. Just going back to sort of doing things practically, it's important for all the actors and the cast. I think they, when you're dealing with fantasy, they want to be in a space. I think it really helps them. I think it helps everyone. And many times we heard, we're a little fed up of standing in front of green screens. There's plenty of digital work. There's plenty to do. We just have to balance it. I'm like a broken record, Lee.
You're not at all. No, I think it's definitely the most proudest thing I've ever worked on. I loved working on the show. It was so amazing. And, when the film is actually shown in its whole from part 1 to part 2, there's a whole arc actually to it. I mean, The Wizard of Oz is an American fairy tale, and I think we try to honor that, but also to do it like a different way. Hopefully we succeeded.
You absolutely did. And watching this clip, I was in the movie, I thought, oh, I have to tell him how much I love all of his light fixtures. There's such brilliant spots of light, and I don't know if you had to manufacture everything but your light placement, I'm sure you worked with the DP closely, just was spot on.
Thank you. I think on Shiz alone we had 300 practicals, just on Shiz, and they were dotted throughout the whole of all the sets. In fact, actually, the Emerald City. Nathan, the giant balloon lights, which we did. Nathan had actually come he wanted to carry on the theme of the hot air balloon, so we took the tops of the capitals of the giant columns from the Great Hall, and we translated them into a kind of a base of a street light, and then built a hot air balloon in this amber silk on top of them with this pattern, and the street lights alone were about 20 feet high. And we had 6 of them placed actually throughout the set.
But it was important. I mean, we should talk about the color. The thing about green is if you just paint everything green, you can't see anything. So, having the amber colors, having navy blue. If you look at that clip, you'll see navy blues, gunmetals, bronzes, the orange of the lights, because you kind of, to see the green, you have to have other colored elements. And that was definitely we learned that on that journey of building sets. And it was like, oh yeah, we need to find other colors and textures.
I mean, outside the Emerald City, we actually, you go into the beauty salon. In fact, actually the whole set, you could walk through the whole set. You could actually get off the train, you could walk down the staircase, you go into the beauty salon. You could actually get your nails done if you wanted to. You could walk through there. You could go to the restaurant. You could get a drink. You could go around. You could get a snow globe. You could take a postcard. You could even post the postcard. We tried to develop a language and a culture through almost every part of that dress.
Well, you can only post the card if you could catch the bike with the mailbox. So
that's true.
you have to be speedy on your feet.
So many wonderful details. Amazing.
It was, well, it's that we had a lot of fun on it as well, right, Nathan? It was a
Oh,
really
it
fun
was
show.
the most fun I've ever had on a film.
Yeah,
Uh,
me
and
too.
I feel like that's sort of saying something because we've been around the block, I think, many
Yeah,
places, many designs. It's great to get into world building, fantasy world building. I think this film in particular has opened a new door where, I feel very much like, I got to do more of this.
yeah,
So,
me too.
Well,
yeah.
I hope you guys do too. That was amazing. So let me ask you, how long were you on this project? And I know there's part one, part two, but how long was your prep time? A
And
year?
our prep wasn't that long. Nathan was on it for Nathan, we on it for maybe 6 weeks actually before me because you
Yeah.
took a small break from Wonka and went almost
Yeah.
straight
I went
into
back
it.
to New York to just try and figure out what we were doing. My wife works with me, so we sit in this one room and try and come up with what does Oz look like. So we did that for about 6 weeks, and then probably had a 6 month prep. But we shot both films together as
Yeah.
one sort of giant film, so it was scheduled as you would one film. It was just twice as long. So that was a little exhausting. So the shoot was enormous.
Yeah.
And then we got shut down 7 days before the end of the strike, so we had to go back in January and pick up the other
Yeah.
7 days. But yeah, it was a long run, but oddly, I think the sort of all the crews and the HODs were very. We were all sort of great friends, and we were all combined together, and it didn't feel like doing two films together.
No, it didn't. It was, I think the prep was about 24 weeks. And so it was like 12 weeks for film one, 12 weeks for film two, which doesn't seem like an awful lot. But because like we shot them at the same time, we were able to span it and the prep just we made the prep work. And then I think the first few sets which we delivered, it was first of all, it was the Girls' Dorm just before Christmas of 23, 23, no, 22. And I think I started in the April of 22 and I finished, including the strikes, I think it was March 24. So it was quite a run, but with that big break in at the middle. But we ended the film with the Emerald City. So we went through all the other worlds of Oz, and the last set was the Emerald City. And actually, the day that the train was actually being put in, as Nathan said, it was 45 tons, and they brought this crane in to lift it in two parts. And I was like, oh, I can't look. I just left the set. I thought, I can't look at this. And they did it. They actually did it. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, that train. There's another field. We grew barley. We grew a field of barley. It's an American image. We needed we needed an Americana image, a train, the sort of Midwest fields. We needed to sort of sink home that was a theme. So the train station, the platform, and then the train. So once we learned how to be farmers, we thought, well, we'll just grow the barley. So,
And that set there sat right next door to the Emerald City, so you could walk from that set. No, you could walk from Munchkinland across a small road into the train station, and then walk down a small lane and into Shiz, and then down the lane further into the Emerald City.
The ambition was to lay enough track. There's a field's worth of track there for the train to run on because it's all motorized. The original idea was, we thought, well, if we put Emerald City just there, but behind the camera point here, we could then just drive the train into the Emerald City. But yeah, that didn't happen.
Well, you really did create your own city world. It's amazing.
Well, we had to open a door, right, Lee? It was like, okay, we got into fantasy.
Nathan always says that Wonka was just a warm-up.
Well, it's weird. You have to sort of learn, like, you do all these films like Dunkirk and Interstellar. You have to learn. So if you're going to do a new format or a new world building experience, it was like, oh, the end of Wonka, which I love too, is like, we got to push further. And I think we both agreed. It's like, we can push further. We just need the right project. And then the phone rang.
Ah,
But it was challenging. It was so challenging. I mean, every set had like a challenge, whether it was to do with time or the design or what the set had to do or the movement of the set. There was nothing usual about any aspect of this film. It was like it was reinventing stuff, and that was the most remarkable thing, being part of that. So that's the reason I feel.
I remember sitting one night in the Galinda's. She has a suite in the Emerald City in the second film, and we were shooting the next day. And I remember sitting with everyone. It was like, oh my god, the doors don't work. They don't, because we designed this crazy thing, but we didn't have the doors. We can't open the doors. We can't even get her in. And then I remember thinking, no, we're going to relax. Let's all just sit in a line, including the carpenters, and we're going to think the problem through and see if we can think our way out of it. And you know what? It worked. The carpenter was like, oh, hold on a second. And it was like, oh yeah, you just have to think, and I don't know if that would work on a bigger scale than a door.
Well, I did ask them not to sit on the pink curved sofas as they were doing their thinking, but that set's extraordinary. That set's also really extraordinary.
Yeah, that's Girl in the Bubble, that number. Everything is about a musical number with a lot of drama in between, which is why it's set into two films, because you get that space to actually like and fall in love with the characters, so good job, John, for getting two films. And Mark Platt is amazing producer. He's so supportive, and we've all sat in those rooms where you get zero support. Mark Platt is behind
right
you,
up there. Right up there.
Yeah.
Right up there.
any last words that you guys want to wrap up with?
Just fond memories, right? Really good fond
Totally.
memories. Really
The best memories. Honestly, it was one of the best. It is the best job I've ever done. I just loved it. And Nathan's a genius, but I never tell him that. So
I like what it's Lee.
Look, I've said it once. That's it.
I didn't pay you. So
No, honestly, it's just like, I think, when we work actually together, I think, we created like a bit of magic.
yeah, it was brilliant. It was absolutely phenomenal. I'd do it again tomorrow, definitely.
Well, the magic really translated to the screen. The audience felt it. I felt it. It stayed with me all day. So thank you for such a delightful project. And thank you for joining us today and, leading me down the yellow brick road of your design process. Had to throw that in. But it's really been a delight speaking to you guys, as always. And I can't wait to see part 2. And congratulations on a job well done.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Inside the Set with Set Decor. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, setdecor.com.